there, Kyrian. Thanks for joining today. We'll just wait about another minute for everyone else to join, okay? And in the meantime, I'd like you to join this little classroom activity thing. And you can click the link I sent in the chat, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I guess it looks like it's only you, Kyrian. Anyway, I guess we can get started. So, as you can see on my screen, we are talking about Louis Braille, and I apologize for mispronouncing his name. Last time, it's actually pronounced Louis Braille, not Louis. So, yeah. And about Louis Braille, we're talking about his biography, and we're learning how he developed this system of fretting that's used by blind people. Okay, so let's start with our word pronunciations. Hi Lulu, thanks for joining. Can I have both of you to turn on your mics and repeat after me, okay? Alright, so let's start with word aw. Aw. Okay, your turn.
All.
Aw. Lulu, would you like to give it a try?
All.
Great job. This is a simple word, but it just means this word is very sharp tool. It's usually used for like making holes. Okay, so an aw. Next, couvre. Couvre. Okay, your turn.
Couvre.
Yes. So this is a town in France, I believe. So it's like French, couvre. Okay. Cited. Cited. Next word.
Cited. Cited.
So like people with vision have they can see, so it's sighted. Yeah. Okay, next one, valuable. Valuable.
Valuable.
Valuable.
Yep, great job. Valuable. Okay, next, memorize. Memorize.
Memorize.
Memorize.
Yes, good job. So this just means to remember things. So like memorize something. Okay. Next one, grief. Grief.
Grief.
Grief. So this is very great sadness. It's like not just sadness, but lots of sadness. I guess you could put it that way. It's very heavy. So grief. Okay. And last one, flourish. Flourish.
Flourish. Flourish.
Yes, great job. So you might know that flourish means to grow or like develop in a very healthy way. So flourish. Okay. All right. Great job. So for today's little reading comprehension tip or lesson, we are talking about making inferences. So I'm just curious, how well do you know inferences? So do you know a lot, a little? Do you know anything about inferences? If not, that's all right. Okay, so we'll start with a video actually that talks about making inferences. It's from Nearpod, so it's the thing that we used last time. So it's a very short video, and we're going to do a little summary after this. So yeah, let's take a look. It explains what making inferences is. Okay.
Today, we're going to talk about making inferences in just a minute.
Just a minute.
Have you ever read a book or watched a movie and correctly guessed how it was going to end? No one told you exactly what was going to happen. Instead, you were able to read between the lines and make an educated guess, or inference. When you make an inference, you combine explicit information, evidence that is directly stated or shown, with implicit information, clues that are implied or suggested. You can make inferences about a fictional story, informational text, or a real-life situation. Let's say you're getting ready for school. Before you leave, you see the TV weather person announce that it's going to rain this afternoon. This is explicit information, something directly stated. But what if instead of turning on the TV, your dad leaves out your raincoat and umbrella for you by the door? You look out the window and see big gray storm clouds in the sky. Without being explicitly told, you can make an inference that it's going to rain today. When you get to school, your friend Simone is yawning and there are bags under her eyes. What inference can you make about Simone?
Okay, so let's pause here. So what inference can you make about Simone? So you see that she's yawning, okay, and she has bags under her eyes. So what do you think, Kairan?
She didn't sleep well last night.
Yeah, she didn't sleep very well last night, so you made an inference. You took those clues, right? So if you took what you previously knew, so like your prior knowledge, and you see those clues, and you put those together to make an inference, okay? So let's make a little summary of that video. So an inference is a conclusion that you make based on clues given in a piece of writing. It's more than a guess, but it's not just an observation either. So you're not just guessing randomly. Hey, you're taking the context clues plus what you know to make an inference. So that's like the little formula. Alright, and the video told us that there are two types of information. First one is explicit information, which is evidence that is directly stated or shown, so we're directly saying it. Or there's implicit information, that's the opposite, and those are clues that are implied or suggested. So we take those two to make an inference. Alright, so the example that we did was Simone being tired, right? So if she directly stated that, I'm tired, I didn't sleep well last night. Well, that's, what kind of information is that? Explicit, right? But if you just see that she looks something like this, well then this would be implicit information. This is implying something. Okay. And also something else that I want to point out is that inferences, while they can be the most likely true, it's not 100% sure, okay? Because you're only taking the clues and taking what you know to make it. It's like an educated guess, okay? It's not 100% sure that it's true, okay? Alright, so let's make some inferences about this image. So we see this image here, and let's try to answer these questions. So first, what time of day is it? Can anyone tell me this? Take a look at these things in this image. So what time of day is it? Is it morning, noon, night? Would anyone like to take a guess? And Lulu, what do you think?
She might have just finished yoga.
Okay, so this person might have just finished yoga. Okay, so that's an inference. So how do we know that? Okay, Kyrie, go ahead.
There is a yoga mat.
Yes, there is a yoga mat, it seems like. And this person is rolling it up, right? Or at least, it seems like it's either rolling it out or rolling it up. Okay. What else do we see? Like, where is this scene taking place, for example? Or what's happening? Or maybe think what happened 5 minutes before this picture was taken? Go ahead, Leilu.
Because it seems to have light, it can either be the morning or it just has lights on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very good observation. This could be, we see that there's lots of light. It's very well lit. So it could either be like morning or during the day, or it could be still at night, but there's very bright lights on. Okay, very good. What else? What else do we see? Right, so is there any people in this picture?
There's someone
Yeah,
wrapping up a mat.
Yeah, so there's someone wrapping up this mat. Yeah, so that's a person, and that's what they're doing. Okay, and would anyone like to add what do you think happened 5 minutes before this picture was taken?
Maybe this person was working out.
Yeah, so maybe this person was working out on the mat or something, and we can also see there's this weight in the background here, right? Okay, yeah, I think that's some pretty good observations. I guess we can get started with our little article. All right, so our article's name is Louis Braille. Again, it's by James Rumford, published in 2002. Okay, so people who are blind use a system of dots that represent letters to read and write called Braille. In this text, James Rumford tells how Louis Braille invented this system. Okay, who would like to start reading this first paragraph?
200 years ago, if you were blind, you became a beggar. Or maybe, if you were lucky, a circus musician or a fortune teller. Most people pitied seeing you because they thought you had only half their wits. Few understood that it was only your eyes that did not work. Your heart and mind were like everybody else.
Thank you, Lulu. So over here it says 200 years ago, if you were blind, you became a beggar. That's someone who kind of begs for money to pay for food. Okay, or maybe if you were lucky, you became a circus musician or a fortune teller. Okay, so because of this, most people pitied you, so they felt sorry for you for your difficult situation, because they thought you only had half their wits, or they thought you were only half as smart. So few understood that it was only your eyes that didn't work. Your heart and your mind were like everyone else's. Okay, let's continue. In 1784, Jason, can you continue reading, please? Over here.
Can you move? Oh, okay. And can you move like your mouse?
Okay.
In 1780, a Frenchman named Awi opened a school in Paris for blind children. He spent all the money he had to prove that blind people could learn. He even invented special books with huge raised letters so that they could read with their fingerprints. News of Hawi's school spread across France, arriving one day in 1818 at the doorsteps of a poor saddlemaker named Simon Braille.
Mm.
After years before the saddlemaker's 3-year-old son had been punctured in his eye with a sharp pointed arrow
All.
while playing.
Mhm.
What?
All.
While playing. Infection quickly spread. His eyes shut, and within days he was blind.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So over here, so first we were given the context of 200 years ago, and now in 1784, this Frenchman called Awe, he opened a school in Paris for blind children to prove that they could actually learn, and they were like everyone else. So he invented special books with huge raised letters so that they could read with their fingertips. So like these huge letters that they could feel. Okay. Now, news of this school spread across France, arriving one day in 1818 at the doorstep of a poor saddle maker named Simon Braille. So that's Louis Braille's father. So several years before, when Louis Braille had punctured when Louis Braille had punctured his eye with a awl, so he was playing with it and he accidentally kind of poked his eye with it. Right. So this sharp tool. So infection quickly sealed his eyes shut, and within days he was blind. So he wasn't born blind, but because of the situation, he became blind. Okay. And there's a little illustration of before this happened. So yes, Jason.
Was it both his eyes?
So he only poked one of them, but because like it's the 18,000s, they didn't really have good medical conditions. So I think like
So it spread?
yeah, it's spread. Like he's just a child, right? So it's very itchy. So like if you poke at it, it's really not that good. So the infection is gonna spread to both eyes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So everyone knew what was in store for the boy, a life of begging. But Louis's father and mother would have none of that. The village priest and the village school teacher agreed, and they taught Louis, even though there are no books for blind children to read or ways for them to write. But Louis was bright, and in 2 years had learned all he could at the village school. Okay, so while he became blind, his parents wouldn't have anything to do with begging for him. So the village priest and the village school teacher agreed to teach him, and because he was a bright student, he learned all he could at the village school. Okay, and there's another illustration of him working his way around with his little cane. Okay. Okay, Kyron, can you continue reading over here?
That was when the village priest came knocking at the Braille's door with an outstanding proposal. Send Louis to Paris to hide away school. But how? There was no money. So the priest went to the most powerful man in the country, who wrote a letter to the school.
Thank you, Kyron. So that was when the village priest came knocking at the Braille's door with an astounding proposal. So a very shocking proposal, or very surprising. So they could send Louis to Paris to Awe school for blind children. But how? Because his parents were poor, so there was no money. So the priest went to the most powerful man in the country, who wrote a letter to the school. Okay, and we'll see what happens. Lulu, can you continue reading over here? Within a few months.
Within a few months, Louis had a scholarship and left his village of Coupvray for a new life in Paris. He was only 10.
Okay,
When Louis was 12, an extraordinary man named Captain Barbier came to the school. Barbier came to the school. He wanted to show off his invention called night writing. This was a code of 12 raised bumps that made it possible for soldiers to send messages in the dark.
So after the priest sent a letter to the most powerful man in the country, within months, Louis had a scholarship. So this is like his education was paid for him, and plus additional money for his living. And so he left his village of Couvray for a new life in Paris. Okay, and he was only 10 at that age, very young. And 2 years later, when he was 12, an extraordinary man called Captain Barbier came to the school. And he wanted to show off his invention called night writing. And this was a code of 12 raised bumps that made it possible for soldiers to send messages in the dark. So before Captain Barbier, he was a captain, like in the army. So he had an invention called night writing, and that was to make it possible for soldiers to send messages in the dark. Because if you have a message and you can't see it in the dark, you have to you need light to see it, right? So if you have light, then it's going to kind of give off like a hint to the enemy, and they can see that you're over there, right? So to prevent that from happening, he invented this night writing so that they could send messages even if they couldn't see. Okay, all right, let's continue. Okay, Jason, can you continue over here?
Me?
Yes, you.
The sighted teacher called Captain Barbie a clever man. But when Louis let his finger over the bubble, he whispered, "No, he's a genius." In that instant, Louis realized night writing was a way for blind people to write down the thousands of ideas that filled their heads. No longer would they have to ask seeing people for help, and night writing was a way for blind people to really read, instead of slowly tracing their fingers over giant raised letters.
Thank you, Jason. Awesome writing. So when they were first introduced to this, Louis thought that Captain Barbier was a genius for making that. In this instant, he realized that night writing was a way for blind people to write down their thousands of ideas that filled their heads, and so they didn't have to ask for people to note those things down. And it was a way for blind people to really read instead of slowly tracing their fingers over these giant raised letters, because these raised letters, they were really big, so it took a lot of time to trace over them. But just with these tiny dots that could fit under one finger, you could actually read what the text kind of said. Okay, and there's another illustration I'm celebrating. Yay. Okay, Kyrian, can you continue reading over here?
But night writing made it worse. Its clumps of dots took too much to write and were almost as hard as raised letters to read. For 3 years, Louis punched out new combinations of dots, but nothing worked. Then one summer, when he was 15, he had a breakthrough. Instead of basing his letters on 12 dots, Louis based them on 6.
Thank you, Kyrian. So, although this night writing was really great, but it still needed some improvement. So, because of this, Louis decided to take it in his own hands, and for 3 years, he punched out different combinations of dots, but nothing quite worked. And then one summer, when he was 15, so about 3 years, when he was 15, he had a breakthrough. So instead of using 12 dots, he decided to put 6. So that's just to fit under one single fingertip instead of a whole finger. Okay. Alright, let's continue over here. This made his letters easier to write and easy to read, for each letter was small enough to fit under a fingertip. Okay. Louis couldn't wait to teach his friends back at school. Within days of his return, his friends were gliding their fingertips across words they had written. No longer did they need sighted people to write for them. Louis' dots meant freedom. Yay. So, at 15, even at this young age, he was able to create this Braille writing for blind people. Okay. Okay, Lulu, can you continue writing over here?
The head of the school director, Pigeoner, welcomed Louis's dot system, but some of the teachers scoffed at the boy's foolishness. How could the blind learn without the help of the seeing? How could the blind lead the blind? The lowest pay no attention. Before long, dot-filled books appeared in classrooms.
Okay, thank you, Leilu. So at the head of the school, so it's kind of like the principal, Dr. Pignet, he welcomed Louis' dot system, but some of the teachers scoffed at the boy's foolishness. So scoffed means to like laugh or think something or someone is silly. So they thought that this Louis' dot system was foolish, and they thought, well, how could the blind learn without the help of seeing? Or how could the blind lead the blind, right? So that was their thought, but Louis paid no attention, and before long, those dot-filled books appeared in classrooms. Okay. And here's an illustration how they use a grid to like make it all in a row, and they use an awl, the same tool that Louis that caused Louis' blindness. So they use that tool to make those dot marks on the paper. Okay. Henry, can you continue reading over here, please? No? Okay. Leilu, would you like to continue?
At age 17, Louis was made a teacher at the school. At 24, a full professor. His students filled his classes, and he in turn filled them with hope and the promise that they each had something valuable to contribute to the world.
Okay, thank you. So when he was 17, he was made a teacher at the school. And at age 24, he became a full professor, and his students filled his classes, and he in turn filled them with hope and promised that they each had something valuable to contribute to the world. So even though they're blind, to him it didn't really matter as long as they tried, right? And they learned. They each had something valuable to contribute. Okay. So Louis even used his dots to write down music. His students no longer had to memorize every piece. Now they could compose music as well. More freedom, more promise. So it's actually pretty amazing, I think, just using dots to write down music instead of actually trying to memorize each piece, right? So this meant more freedom, more promise. They could be more independent. Okay. Jason, can you continue over here, please? 1840.
Me?
Yep.
Where to where?
Over here. You can end whenever you want.
In 1840, Director Pignier was dismissed, and a teacher named
Dufault.
Dufault took his place. Dufault didn't like Louis's thoughts. They made the students too independent. One summer, when Louis was back in Coopvary, Dufault introduced a simplified form of
Always.
what?
Always.
Always raised letter. And then to make sure that everyone knew system, he burned his used books and rules too. There was also a new rule: no more dot writing. But no one gives up newly won freedom without fight. Louis, in his grief, knew that the students defied the director. They wrote secret. They passed notes at night. When the field saw the support the students had for the dot system and the love for Louis, he gave in. Dot books and dot writing were back for the next 8 years. Louis continued to teach, and his system of reading and writing flourished.
Okay, Jason, and I'll stop you there. Thank you for reading. Just a little thing to point out, when you read, try to slow down, especially if you're like starting to stutter. Okay, so just try to slow down when you read and look at each word before you send it out. Okay. All right. So So in 1840, this director Pignet, he was dismissed, and a teacher named Dufault took his place. Now, contrasting to Dr. Pignet, Dufault didn't like Louis' dots. He thought that they made the students too independent. So, one summer, when Louis was back in Couvray, Dufault introduced a simplified form of always raised letters, and also, to make sure that everyone used his new system, he burned Always books and Louis as well. So he burned the Always original raised letters books and Louis' dot system. Okay, and there was also one new rule: no more dot writing. So he didn't want the student to continue using dot writing. Okay, so he's kind of like a dictator here, right? So, but then no one gives up nearly one freedom without a fight. So if you suddenly gain some freedom to actually become independent, and then it's suddenly taken away from you, well, that's not really fair, right? It doesn't really feel good. So even in his grief, Louis, so even in his grief, he knew that, and the students defied the director. So defied, you might see that defied means to like disobey or to go against someone, especially someone in position, in a very high position. So instead of listening to him, they wrote in secret and they passed notes at night. So they still did the dot writing. Okay, and then when Dufault saw the support that the students had for the dot system and their love for Louis, he gave in. So he gave in after that. So dot books and dot writing were back, and for the next 8 years, Louis continued to teach, and his system of reading and writing flourished. Okay, and last paragraph. Kyrin, can you finish it off for us, please?
Then, in 1852, he became seriously ill and died. No newspaper mentioned his death. Only the school knew that a great man had passed away. They made a statue of their beloved teacher and wrote his life story. Slowly, the world adopted his system. Slowly, the world came to know of Louis Braille. In 1952, 100 years after his death, his body was taken from Courbevoie to Paris and buried alongside the heroes of France. That day, every newspaper in the world wrote about Louis, and thousands of blind people lined the streets to honor him. Louis Braille had given them the means to prove that their hearts and minds were like everyone else's.
Okay, thank you, Kyrin. So, like I said, this is the last paragraph. So, in 1852, he became seriously ill and died. They say he died of tuberculosis or something. So, something to do with the lungs. So, no newspaper mentioned his death, and only the school knew that this great man had passed away. So, they made a statue of their beloved teacher and wrote his life story. And very slowly, the world adapted his system and came to know of Louis Braille. Okay, and 100 years after his death, his body was taken from Couvray to Paris, buried alongside the heroes of France. And they also say they wanted to keep Louis' hands. Okay, and that day, every newspaper in the world wrote about Louis, and thousands of blind people lined the streets to honor him. And this is because Louis Braille gave them the means to prove that their heart and mind were like everyone else's. So kind of circling back to the beginning of this article. Alright, so although this article isn't all that cheery and happy like our previous articles, this kind of shows how the world's not all sunshine and rainbows. But we can see, although he didn't live to see his contributions to the world, they were still very useful for blind people, because like this says, he gave them the means to prove that their heart and mind were like everyone else's, but also they could also become more independent. They can read and write on their own instead of having to ask for someone else to do it. Alright, Any comments and questions before we move on? If not, we can move on. Alright, so here's just some fun facts I kind of researched online, and I think it's really interesting. So first, always raised letters were printed on heavy paper and required a whole printing press. So these are not made by hand, so it required a whole printing press, like printers, to actually create these giant raised letters on this paper. So although they could slowly trace the words on that page, they couldn't really write with it. So that was a problem. So, you know, like Braille wanted, you can kind of think that it was these raised letters were kind of frustrating to work with. Okay. Okay, next, Braille was an accomplished cellist and organist. This might be hard to imagine, but he was actually a very good musician. So a cello, this is in the violin family, and the organ is like a double-decked piano. It's similar to a piano. So yeah, that's an organ. So remember how the article mentioned how Braille invented a way to write down music with the dot system? Okay, so yeah, just a little connection. Okay, third, in honor of Louis Braille, NASA named an asteroid 9969 Braille. So there's another kind of honor for him. So NASA named this asteroid after his last name. Okay. Next, Braille is not a language. It's actually an alphabet that can be used to write almost any language. So it's not like French or English or Spanish. It's just another kind of alphabet. Okay. And lastly, Braille also has special codes for math. Dr. Abraham Nemath, a mathematician who is blind, invented codes and Braille symbols for advanced math like algebra and calculus. I think this is very interesting. So like, although Braille is usually refers to like letters and numbers, this mathematician who is blind, he invented codes and Braille symbols for these kind of advanced math, because it can be quite frustrating, especially if you can't see to like write down all those difficult equations and things like that. So yeah, this is a pretty good breakthrough. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look at this question. What is the main idea of this text? So we kind of have a review of the last week's lesson of main idea. Okay, let me give you 4 choices. Is it A, Louis Braille created a new system for blind people to read and write? B, it is difficult for seeing people to understand Louis Braille's dot system? C, blind people today are able to read and write using a system called night writing? Or D, no one has been able to learn the dot system since Defoe burned the books explaining it. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to think about that, and you can tell me which is the answer. Okay, A, B, C, or D. Okay, so when you think you know the answer, I'd like you to raise your hand. Okay.
A.
Okay, so Jason says A. Anyone else? Okay, Rand, what do you think? So which one is the main idea of the text?
A.
A. You think it's A? Leilu, what do you think?
A.
Okay, so all 3 of you are correct. It is A. So Louis Braille created a new way for blind people to read and write. It's the overall main idea. It's the overall picture. Okay. D is not it, because we obviously that in the article near the end we saw that although he was against it at first, he gave in because he saw the students really supported it. Okay, so it's not D. Blind people do. So it's not C either, although it does mention night writing. It's that Louis Braille created kind of improved night writing to create the Braille, Braille. And for B, it is difficult for seeing people to understand it. This this text never mentions anything about about it being difficult, so it is not obvious. It is obviously not B. So the answer is A. All right. Okay, vocabulary time. We have words all, puncture, astounding, scoff, grief, and defy. Jason, can you read the definition for all, please?
Vocabulary out, a pointed tool for making small holes in wood or leather.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Puncture. What?
Just one
I
at a
thought-
time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. So, an awl is that sharp pointed tool for making small holes in wood or leather. So, it's used for making saddles, right, like Louis' father. Okay. Kyrian, can you read the next definition?
Puncture, to make a hole with a sharp or pointed object.
So, you could use puncture in a sentence like, a sharp piece of glass punctured the hole in the tire in my bike, right? So, puncture, to make a hole with a sharp or pointed object. Okay, next, astounding. Jagger, can you read the definition for astounding?
Astounding, very surprising or shocking.
So, astounding is another word for surprising or shocking. Okay, it's very surprising. Okay, next, scoff. Lulu, can you read this definition?
Me?
I'm asking Lulu.
Scoff, to laugh and talk about a person, idea that shows you think they are silly.
So scoff is it's like to laugh and talk about a person or idea to show that you think they are silly. So if you scoff at someone, you think they are silly or something, or they're foolish. So remember in the article it said that some of Louis' teachers scoffed at him or scoffed at his dot system because they thought it was foolish, right? Okay, and next, grief. Jason, you can go ahead and read this.
Grief, very great sadness.
So grief or great sadness. It was used when Dufault took away Louis' dot system, and Louis was very sad about that. So that's another word for grief. And last one, yes. So Jason says depressed. Yes. So that's another word for grief. They're synonyms. Okay. And Kyrian, can you read this last one?
Defy, to refuse to obey a person, decision, law, etc.
Thanks. So defy, in this article it was used when the students defied Dufault when he took away the dot system. They refused to obey him when they continued to use the dot system to pass notes. Okay. Alright, so back over here. Let's do some vocabulary exercises. So for those who haven't done so yet, I'd like you to go to this link and you just click that link I sent in the chat and you can do this activity. So we have those vocabulary words and we have some images representing those. So it's kind of like match the correct one. Okay. So let me just see. I'm gonna give you 3 minutes to do this and we'll take it up as a class, okay? Okay, so when you click that link, it's gonna ask you for your first name. Okay, so you just enter that and you can start on this activity.
I finished.
Okay, Jason, I see that you're done. I'll give everyone else a few more seconds. Okay, let's take this up as a class. So let's start with this picture. Can anyone tell me which word represents this image? Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Ow.
Yes, this is an O. Okay, great job. Let's take this image. Leilu, can you tell me what this represents? Take a look at these words.
Astounding.
Yes, astounding, very shocking. Okay, good job. What about this image? Go ahead, Jason.
Grief.
Yes, great job. This is grief. How about this one? This one's a little harder. Jason again?
Defy.
Yes, so defy. Remember, this looks like origami birds. So we have these three that are kind of like on the ground. This one is kind of contrasting, so that it's like defying the situation, right? So it's flying instead of on the ground here. Okay. How about this one? What is this? Kaiyuan?
Scoff.
This is scoff. So kind of like laughing at others. And last one, Jason?
Puncture and pierce.
Yes, puncture and pierce. Definite.
Because
Same.
if you puncture something, you pierce it too.
Yes, so if you puncture something, you pierce it. It's kind of like a tire, right? Okay, well done, guys. Okay, next one. This time we have fill in the blanks. So we have the same words, kind of fill the right words into the right blanks for each sentence. Okay, so my bike had to something in the last 3 weeks. Next, something is a pointed tool for making holes in wood or leather. Third one, at intervals throughout the show are blank displays of gymnastics and acrobatics by talented artists. Despite the blank of her colleagues, the experiment was completely successful. She describes the anxieties in blank caused by war. And lastly, a few workers blank the decision to strike and went into work. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, I see Kaiyuan is done. Great job. I'll give you a few more seconds. Alright. Okay, so let's take this up. So what word goes into this first blank? My bike had do something in the last 3 weeks. Which one is it? Jason?
Punctures.
Yes, so my bike had 2 punctures in the last 3 weeks. So kind of punctures, kind of like holes in them. Okay. Next sentence, and something is a pointed tool for making holes in wood or leather. Lilu?
All.
And all. Okay, great job. Third one, what word goes into this one? Jason?
Outstanding.
Or astounding. I know it looks like outstanding, but it's astounding. Okay.
I read it wrong. I saw it wrong.
That's alright. I know they look very similar. It starts with an A and the other starts with an O. So at intervals throughout the show are astounding displays of gymnastics and acrobatics by talented artists. Okay, next one. What word goes in here? Gairen?
Scoff.
Despite the scoffs of her colleagues, the experiment was completely successful. Okay, so her colleagues scoffed at this person. Okay, Jason, what goes in this one?
Grief.
So war causes a lot of anxieties and griefs. Good job. And last one. A few workers blank. The decision to strike in went into work.
Can I say if no one is
Okay,
going
go ahead.
to be fired?
So a few workers defied the decision to strike and went into work. So these few workers, they went against this situation. Okay, let's check. Good job, 6 out of 6. Okay, and now I have a video. It kind of gives a little more background information, starting with Louis Braille's lifetime. Okay, so yeah, let's take a look.
Where does Braille come from? The story begins in 1812 in France, and a young boy called Louis Braille. He lost his sight in one eye when he was 3. This was the culprit, a sharp tool called an awl, which he was playing around with in his father's workshop. His eye got infected, and the infection spread to the other eye. By 5, Louis Braille was completely blind. But he was determined, and he went on to win a scholarship at France's Royal Institute for Blind Youth. At the time, the system for reading was pretty basic, just raised letters on a page, so he started working on a new code that would be quicker and more efficient. By the time he was 15, Braille's new system was basically complete, and the first edition was published in 1829. Braille's system was based on a military code called night writing. Invented by Captain Charles Barbier, it was a system of embossed dots and dashes that soldiers could read safely with their fingers on the battlefield at night. Braille simplified the system, reducing the cells from 12 to 6 raised dots, so they were the ideal size for a fingertip to feel with one touch. Braille created his raised dots using an awl, the same sharp tool that had caused his blindness, and a flat grill to keep the lines straight and readable. It's read from left to right like other European scripts. Braille is not a language, it's a system of writing, which means it can be adapted to different languages. Braille codes have been developed for maths and scientific formulae. Braille loved music and invented a system of Braille for writing music too. But the medical establishment was conservative, and Braille's innovation was slow to be adopted. He died of tuberculosis, aged 43, 2 years before his system was finally taught at the institute where he'd been a student. 100 years later, he was reburied at the Pantheon in Paris in honor of his work, though his local village insisted on keeping his hands. Over time, the system did spread throughout the French-speaking world. By 1882, it was in use across Europe and had reached North America by 1916. A universal Braille code for English was formalized in 1932. Braille has been revolutionary for many blind people around the world, but with the rise of new technologies, including computers that talk, literacy rates are on the decline. In 1999, a second eponym was given to this extraordinary man. A rare type of asteroid was named 9969 Braille by NASA, a timeless tribute to a great human being.
Okay, and there's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. So, kind of like an overview of this again. So, although Braille was 15 when he invented this, and it was very useful for those who couldn't see or had low vision, the world was kind of slow to adopting this. Okay, but although Louis Braille didn't live to see his kind of his invention or the impact that he had on the world for helping blind people, it did slowly start to spread towards other continents of the world, and started to use in other places, like in public places, like in public accommodations, elevators, like we saw, signs, those kind of things. So yeah, although I guess you could see, like, even if you're at this young age, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still create inventions that can influence the world in a positive way. Okay? Any questions, comments? If not, I guess we can continue over here. Okay, so instead of a Kahoot today, I thought I'd like you to try out this thing that's on Nearpod. It's kind of similar to Kahoot, but so it's still multiple choice questions, but I thought I'd like to try this out with you guys. So similar to that, this is a review of today's lesson. Okay. Yeah. So if you haven't already, you can click the link I sent in the chat and join this. So we have about 4 minutes left to do this. Okay, thanks, Kaivan. I'll wait a few more seconds. Okay, I guess I'll start right now. Okay, question 1. In the 17,000s, being blind meant A, you cannot go to school, B, you had to be an artist, C, you had few options, or D, you could not read. So which one is it? Okay, great job. So it is C. Okay, next question. Night writing gave blind people A, opportunities, intelligence, vision, or light. So it's actually opportunities. Third, the Louis dot system was quickly adopted by everyone, helped blind people learn the shape of letters, made it easier for blind people to read and write, or meant that blind people no longer needed to go to school. Okay, yeah, so it is C, and made it easier for blind people to read and write. Okay, question 4. In this article, the word defied shows that the students did not follow Defoe's directions, dropped out of Defoe's school, learned Defoe's new system for reading and writing, or asked the same people to help them read and write. Okay, yeah, so it is this first one. They did not follow Defoe's directions. Question 5. Which of the following is an all? Pretty easy here. Yes, so it is this one. Alright, we're almost done here. An inference is evidence that is directly stated, a clue that is implied, an educated guess, or easy right now. So it is C. It's an educated guess. Question 7. True or false? Braille is not a language. Okay, good job. it is true. And lastly, today people remember Louis Braille because his music was so beautiful, his writing system is still in use, he learned to read and write by himself, or he was mistreated. So the answer is B. His writing system is still in use. Okay, leaderboard. Congrats, Jason, for earning first, and congrats to Guy Ray.